You always think you'll know when it's coming, the moment everything unravels. But the truth is, it hits you when you least expect it. For me, it was a Thursday afternoon, when my manager, Charles, knocked lightly on the side of my cubicle. "Got a minute?" he asked, way too cheerful. Innocent enough. Harmless even. I grabbed my notepad, the way you do when you expect it's going to be about project updates or deadlines, and followed him down the hall. But instead of heading toward one of the usual glass meeting rooms, he led me straight to HR. That's when I knew. The polite smiles. The careful wording. The way the HR manager kept glancing at her folder like it was some kind of protective shield. "We've decided to go in a different direction. Budget cuts. Restructuring. Blah, blah, blah." It all blurred together. I didn't even try to argue. I knew how these things worked. The decision was already made long before they scheduled the meeting. By the time I emptied out my desk, one sad little box of memories, it felt almost surreal. Like it wasn't even happening to me. The worst part, it wasn't even Charles or the HR lady who twisted the knife. It was Emily. Emily, my coworker who had always acted like my friend. The one who sent me memes at work. The one who borrowed my stapler and gossiped about the managers like we were allies. When she saw me walking down the hallway with my box, she didn't look sad. She didn't even pretend. She laughed. Not a full-on cackle, that would have been too obvious. No, it was worse. It was a little smirk, a chuckle under her breath she didn't bother to hide. Like seeing me fall somehow validated her. Like my failure made her taller. I froze for half a second. Long enough to really register it. The look of smugness on her face. The way she turned back to her computer screen like nothing had happened. I didn't say anything. Just kept walking. But something inside me hardened right then and there. I had been kicked. Publicly. Humiliated. But I wasn't going to stay down. No way. If Emily thought that was the end of my story, she clearly didn't know who she was dealing with. Because getting fired wasn't going to break me. It was going to fuel me. That night I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my little cardboard box of office junk, my framed photo of my dog, a few pens, a stack of half-used Post-its, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to sit around wallowing. I wasn't going to let Cromwell Marketing, or Charles, or Emily define the story of how my career ended. No, I was going to level up. Faster, smarter, stronger. And when the moment came, when I stood on firmer ground again, I wasn't going to hide it. I was going to make damn sure Emily knew exactly how wrong she had been to laugh. I didn't know how yet. Didn't know when. But deep in my gut, I knew something big was coming. And when it did, oh, it was going to be beautiful. The first morning after getting fired hit me harder than I expected. There was no alarm screaming at 6:00 a.m. No frantic search for clean work clothes. No long commute, gripping a lukewarm coffee cup like it was a life raft. Just silence. The kind that makes you stare at the ceiling and wonder what the hell you're supposed to do now. I let myself feel it, the fear, the shame, the anger. I gave myself that morning. One morning. But by noon I was out of bed, showered, dressed, even if it was just jeans and a t-shirt, and sitting at my kitchen table with my laptop open, a blank document staring back at me. Step 1, update the resume. I hadn't touched it in years. Every bullet point felt like it mocked me now. Team player. Proven leadership skills. Dedicated to company success. Dedicated to a company that tossed me aside like yesterday's news the second it was convenient. Still, I polished it up. Tightened the wording. Added a few freelance projects I had done on the side. Adjusted the formatting to something clean, professional, modern. If Cromwell didn't want me anymore, fine. Someone else would. I spent the next few hours applying for everything I could find, jobs that matched my skills, companies with decent reputations, anything remotely close to what I actually wanted. It wasn't glamorous. It was sending resumes into the void, refreshing my inbox every 5 minutes, wondering if anyone would even look at me twice. But it was movement. And that was better than drowning. That night, as I was scrolling through job boards for the 100th time, an email popped up. At first, I thought it was just another automated rejection. But no, it was a real message. From a recruiter at a mid-sized agency across town, Brightlane Communications. I remembered them vaguely. A few years ago, they had been Cromwell's biggest competitor before losing a couple of major clients. But now they were growing again. The email was short and sweet. Saw your resume online, impressed with your background in brand management. Are you available for a quick call tomorrow? I blinked at the screen, rereading it 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Available. Hell yes, I was available. I typed back a polite, professional reply, hiding the fact that I was practically vibrating with excitement, and set up a time for the next afternoon. When I closed my laptop, I leaned back in my chair and exhaled for the first time all day. Maybe this was nothing. Maybe it would go nowhere. But maybe, just maybe, it was the break I needed. And the best part, if it worked out, I wouldn't just be landing on my feet. I'd be landing higher than Cromwell ever let me climb. Higher than Emily would ever expect. I lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling again, but this time, the silence didn't feel so suffocating. It felt full of possibility. Full of the beginnings of something new. And deep down, a part of me started whispering again. Get ready. You're not done yet. Not even close. The next afternoon, I found myself standing outside Brightlane Communications office building, my palms sweating inside my jacket pockets. It was strange. On paper, this was just another interview, one of dozens I had scheduled in the past 24 hours. Another small chance in a sea of maybes. But something about it felt different. Bigger, sharper around the edges. I took a deep breath, adjusted my jacket, and pushed through the revolving doors. Brightlane's lobby was clean and modern, a lot different from Cromwell's tired beige cubicles and faded motivational posters. The air smelled like fresh coffee and possibility. At the front desk, a young woman smiled warmly and directed me to a waiting area. Mr. Turner will be right with you, she said. I nodded, trying not to fidget as I sat down. Mr. Turner. I had looked him up the night before. Daniel Turner, CEO of Brightlane. Not just a manager. Not just an HR rep. The CEO. My heart kicked up a little at that. When the elevator dinged a few minutes later, a tall man with salt and pepper hair and a confident, easy smile walked toward me. Alex, he asked, offering a firm handshake. Yes, sir, nice to meet you, I said, standing quickly. Call me Dan, he said easily. Come on back. I followed him through the sleek, glass-walled halls to a cozy conference room. No giant mahogany table. No intimidating panel of stone-faced executives. Just Dan sitting across from me like an equal. We dove into it almost immediately. He asked about my background, my projects at Cromwell, what I liked and didn't like about the industry. And I didn't hold back. I spoke honestly about what I loved, building brand loyalty, telling real stories, helping companies connect to actual people instead of shouting into the void. I even talked briefly, carefully, about what had happened at Cromwell. Dan listened without interrupting, his eyes sharp but not cold. Finally, after what felt like barely 20 minutes, he leaned back in his chair and gave a small, thoughtful nod. I'll be blunt, he said, we've been looking for someone like you for a while. Someone who understands how important genuine branding is, not just slapping a shiny slogan on a website. I blinked. He wasn't done. We lost a few good people to bigger firms last year, he continued, but we're rebuilding now. Stronger, smarter, more real. And I think you could help lead that. I opened my mouth, maybe to say thank you, maybe to ask a follow-up, but he wasn't finished. I'm prepared to offer you the brand strategy manager position, full-time, competitive salary, signing bonus. You'd be leading a small team, reporting directly to me. The world tilted for a second. I barely caught my breath in time to say, I'd love that, thank you. Dan smiled and stood, extending his hand again. I'll have HR send over the official offer by tonight. Sleep on it if you need to, but I have a good feeling about this. I shook his hand, feeling the old tightness in my chest, the one Cromwell had built there, brick by brick, start to crack. Thank you, I said again, meaning it more than I'd ever meant anything. Walking out of that building, the sun felt brighter. The city noise sounded like music instead of static. Everything felt alive again. And that's when the idea hit me, sudden and perfect. Emily. The smug little smirk. The way she had laughed at my humiliation. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need some angry confrontation. I had something better. Something sweeter. I was going to send her the offer letter. Not because I needed her approval. Not because I wanted her reaction. But because I wanted her to see crystal clear that I wasn't broken. That I hadn't just survived. I had leveled up. And no amount of cheap laughter from the sidelines could ever touch me now. That night I didn't sleep much. Not because I was nervous. Not because I was second-guessing myself. Because I couldn't stop thinking about how quickly everything had turned around. How, just a week ago, I was walking out of Cromwell's front doors with a cardboard box in my hands, my future feeling like a crater. And now I was about to step into something bigger, better, something that was actually mine. At exactly 8:17 p.m. my phone buzzed. It was the email from Brightlane's HR department. Subject, official offer letter, brand strategy manager position. I opened it so fast I nearly fumbled my phone. And there it was in black and white. Full-time salary, higher than anything I had earned at Cromwell. Signing bonus, enough to wipe out my lingering credit card debt. Full benefits. A title that finally reflected the work I knew I was capable of doing. There was even a start date, 2 weeks from today. I sat back in my chair, grinning like an idiot. It was real. It was happening. I didn't need to think it over. I didn't need to negotiate. I clicked reply, attached my signed acceptance form, and hit send before the excitement could eat me alive. It was official. I was no longer a casualty of Cromwell's budget cuts. I was the brand strategy manager at Brightlane Communications. And now it was time for the cherry on top. Emily. I hadn't forgotten the look on her face when I carried that box out. Hadn't forgotten the way she smirked like she had won something. And maybe for a few days she had. Maybe she thought she was better. Safer. Untouchable. But today was a new day. I pulled up my old work email. Even though Cromwell had revoked my access, I still had a few personal contacts saved, including Emily's direct email. I tapped out a message, keeping it short and sweet. Hi, Emily. Hope you're doing well. Just wanted to share some exciting news. I've accepted a new position as brand strategy manager at Brightlane Communications. Starting in 2 weeks, thanks again for all the good memories at Cromwell. Wishing you continued success. Best, Alex. No anger. No gloating. No obvious digs. Just the truth. Because sometimes the truth is more devastating than anything else. Especially when it comes wrapped in success. I reread it once to make sure it was perfect, then hit send without hesitation. The minute I did, a wave of satisfaction rolled over me. Not because I wanted to rub it in her face. But because I wanted her to know, really know, that her laughter didn't break me. It built me. It reminded me that I deserved better than a company and people who treated me like I was disposable. And now better was exactly what I had. The next morning, I woke up to a notification. A single-line reply from Emily. Congrats, wow, good for you. No exclamation points. No emojis. No warmth. Just 3 clipped little sentences that told me everything I needed to know. She was stunned. She hadn't expected this. She had already written my story in her mind, the one where I flailed, failed, disappeared into mediocrity. But real life doesn't follow the stories jealous people write for you. It follows the path you carve for yourself, even if you have to crawl it first. I tossed my phone onto the bed and smiled. The chapter with Cromwell was closed. The chapter with Emily was closed. A brand new book was opening in front of me, clean pages, blank spaces, ready for something better. And for the first time in a long time, I couldn't wait to start writing it. The 2 weeks leading up to my first day at Bright Lane passed in a blur of preparation. I cleaned my apartment like I was scrubbing away the last fingerprints of my old life. I updated my LinkedIn profile, added my new title, and didn't bother hiding the grin that stretched across my face when the congratulations messages started pouring in. Old colleagues who had barely glanced at me before were suddenly popping into my DMs, saying things like, "Always knew you were going places." Funny how quiet they were when I needed them most. But I didn't let it sour me. Because the truth was I was going places, and I didn't need their approval to get there. I spent time getting to know Bright Lane from every angle, their brand strategy, their clients, their leadership style, their mission statement that for once didn't sound like it had been cooked up by a soulless committee. It was sharp, bold, human. Exactly the kind of place I wanted to be part of. The night before my first day, I laid out my outfit, simple but sharp, dark jeans, a clean white shirt, a navy blazer. Not stuffy, not desperate, just me polished. I couldn't sleep much that night, but it wasn't the bad kind of restless. It was the kind of energy you get before a plane takes off. You know you're strapped in, you know the wheels are going to leave the ground. You just don't know exactly what the view will look like yet. And honestly, I couldn't wait to find out. Walking into Bright Lane that first morning was like stepping into an entirely different universe. No gray carpets, no soul-sucking fluorescent lights. The lobby was filled with natural sunlight, green plants, and energy, real, buzzing, crackling energy. People smiled when they walked past you, not those fake, polite smiles, real ones. The kind that said, "We see you, you belong here." The HR coordinator, a woman named Jenna, greeted me with a giant smile and a welcome packet thick enough to double as a doorstop. "Coffee, down the hall, kitchen's always stocked," she said as she handed me a keycard, "and no pressure, but we're very serious about Bagel Fridays." I laughed, and for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel forced. I spent the morning setting up my desk, meeting my new team, and sitting through the standard orientation sessions. But instead of feeling like an outsider trying to wedge myself into a space that didn't want me, like I had so often at Cromwell, I felt something different. I felt wanted. Respected. Like my ideas might actually matter here. Around lunchtime, my new manager, Danny, a woman who radiated effortless cool with her leather boots and casual confidence, swung by my desk. "Hey, you free for a quick coffee run?" she asked. "Absolutely," I said, grabbing my coat. As we walked, she asked about my background, but not in a checkbox way. She was actually listening. She wanted to know my strengths, my passions, what kinds of projects made me light up. When I told her about my ideas for brand storytelling and how companies could stop sounding like robots, she grinned. "That's why we hired you," she said simply. "We don't want safe, we want better." I tucked that sentence away like a treasure. Maybe Cromwell had fired me. Maybe Emily had laughed. But here I was, already standing somewhere better than I ever could have imagined. And the best part, I had built this moment myself. One hard step at a time. 3 months later, on a random Wednesday morning, I got a notification on LinkedIn. It was a post from Cromwell Communications. "Exciting changes ahead. We're proud to announce our new strategic direction for 2025. I clicked out of curiosity, not out of bitterness, just curiosity. There it was, a long announcement filled with corporate buzzwords and desperate optimism. Buried halfway down, one little line caught my eye. After 8 incredible years, Emily Stanton has decided to pursue new opportunities outside of Cromwell. I stared at it for a long moment. Emily gone. Maybe she left on her own. Maybe she didn't. Maybe it didn't matter. Because standing there in the Brightlane kitchen, sipping my second coffee of the morning, surrounded by coworkers who actually cared about their work and about each other, I realized something important. It didn't change a thing. Emily's fall wasn't my victory. My victory was waking up every day excited to go to work. My victory was leading a project that got featured in a major industry magazine. My victory was pitching an idea in a meeting and seeing people really nod, because they believed in it. My victory was building a life that wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about proving myself right. That I was enough. That I was capable. That I could survive being laughed at, underestimated, pushed out, and still rise higher than anyone ever thought I could. And as I closed the LinkedIn tab, smiling to myself, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. The best kind of revenge isn't revenge at all. It's success. It's happiness. It's walking away from the past without a single backward glance, because the future looks way too good to waste even a second looking behind you. And for the first time in a long, long time, I was just getting started.